다다다게 고순다라. 현재 님보대 Voyage, parting Atisha, some Dharma Jasatiore.
So, we are just about to commence the teaching, and Rinpoche has chosen as this year's subject a collection of instructions by the great Indian master, Bengali master Atisha, which is called the 100 Short Dharmas of Atisha. And from within these teachings, Rinpoche has chosen the 4th chapter, which is called, roughly translated, the Condensed Essence, or Gathering the Essence. The Buddha himself has taught a great many different teachings, as they are known, the various collections of sutras and tantras and so forth. However, the great masters who followed after him, the great scholars and great practitioners who followed in the centuries and millennia after the Buddha, have again and again summarized these various teachings into short and concise instructions. And in this way also the great teacher, the protector Atisha, has composed his own summary of these teachings, which we are about to be to hear from Rinpoche. In order to recognize your true natural state, that which we call the true nature of mind, it is necessary, by all means, to first receive the blessing and inspiration of one's teacher. Also those who have already progressed upon this path, who find themselves somewhere along the path and stages, also such practitioners have again and again to assure themselves of the blessing and inspiration of their teachers. And while upon such a path, while practicing in this way, again and again there will be obstacles, there will be hindrances and so forth, which again are being eradicated by way of making sure that one receives the blessing and inspiration of one's teacher. And the very best, the most appropriate and efficient way in order to do so is to practice the meditation which is known as Guruyoga. Therefore, in order to start out, to begin with, we will first practice together a short Guruyoga meditation. We will start out by way of first practicing this short Karmapa Guruyoga, and as we imagine the Karmapa to be truly present above our heads, we will then repeat the mantra of the Karmapa for a little while. We will then receive the empowerments by way of the various lights, and after this we will imagine how the Karmapa dissolves into light and melts into ourselves, thereby becoming inseparably one with us.
Ola Shana Sandons, Gula Chu number son, Soye Doji to not us, then Shadoji Motum, you are that and DKE, and Gong.
Now there's a great many different Karmapa Guruyoga practices, such as the practice that is known as the Guruyoga in 4 sessions, the Trinchi Lamanalja, etc. There are various other ones of varying lengths, and the particular one which we're about to use here is a very concise version. However, the way of going about the actual meditation is the same one. We imagine how above our heads there is a many-petaled lotus flower, on top of which there is a sun and a moon disk, on top of which the 17th Karmapa of Ujjain Chinlen Dorje sits. He sits with his arms crossed in front of his chest, holding Vajra and bell. His legs are in the cross-legged position. On top of his head there is the typical black Vajra crown of the Karmapas, and he wears the 3 Dharma robes.
So the
text that Rinpoche himself has composed, we will now first receive the Long from it. It is said time and again that when one sets out to listen to Dharma instructions, to study, to learn, to internalize the Dharma, that one should make sure that from the very outset one is endowed with the right attitude, with the correct motivation. And the correct motivation or attitude is the one which is known as the enlightened attitude or bodhicitta. It is that attitude which allows us to open our hearts for the benefit and welfare of all beings and to go about the study and the learning and implementation of Dharma for the sake of all beings. If we are endowed with that particular attitude or such a motivation, then it is generally said that whatever we do, whatever it is, whatever activity it is that we perform, that benefit for the welfare of all beings will derive thereof. Now to once again summarize the various points, the very meaning of this motivation, it is the motivation which allows us to act with whatever we do for the welfare of beings. So it is that motivation which allows us to remember that all sentient beings, not a single one excluded, are caught up in this cycle of suffering, in this cycle of unrelenting problems and sufferings and so forth, and that all of these beings, of course, have a wish to be free of such suffering. We are connected with each and every one of these beings in such a way as that all of them invariably have been our loving and kind mothers in one former life or another. Now, in order to liberate all of these beings from their sufferings and the causes thereof, we set out to listen to such Dharma instructions, we set out to study and implement the Dharma for the sake of all of these beings. Now, the author of these instructions which we're about to hear is none other but the great master, which is known as Gyaltsen Atisha. Atisha was an Indian, or to be more precise, a Bengali master, who was famed far and wide, not only for his learning and understanding, but also for his having practiced and realized that which he taught. He is the one who composed that short summary of instructions which we're about to hear. As to the place of birth of Atisha, he was born in the northeastern part of India, which was then and now known as Bengal. Atisha, the great master from from eastern Bengal, was born the son of a king, the King Kalyanashri, and his queen, Sri Prabha, and he was born as the second of three sons. When the young Atisha was 11 years old, it became clearly apparent that his main aim, his main interest in this life was to present representations of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha with offerings, that his interest was in giving presents and alms to the poor and to the needy, and to greatly venerate his two kind parents. At around that time, the young Atisha was on an outing together with 12 attendants riding on horseback, and they came into a lonely, remote area in a wood, where they then met the yogin who was known as the Brahmin Jetari. And Atisha then immediately had great faith in that yogin, in that Brahmin, and he received the refuge vows. Furthermore, this Brahmin Jetari prophesied to Atisha that it would be of very great benefit if eventually he would go to the monastic university of Nalanda in order to study the Dharma there.
Nalanda Pepne, Lama Songchu Zango Hiba, Tirin and Songchu Sang Dambato. Then Sang Nilu, Yong Jotong, Jito Lava, Jungzi, Moti. The ages of the Lama Rahula. Lama Rahola Jine, Tirin and Jibato Jike on top.
Eventually, Atisha then went to Nalanda, and among the first teachers who he met there was the great Master Bodhibhadra. And from this Master Bodhibhadra, he received various types of instructions, various types of ordination, and from him he learned he learned how to immerse his mind in quiet resting and familiarize himself with the basic points of the Dharma. He studied and practiced diligently, and later on met another master by name of Rahula, from whom he received the empowerment into the Vajratantras.
Rahula Song Tacharon Jo Serlingpa Jigu, long thing. Serlingpa Javala, and Trozinganala, and Dawa Song with Trozinganala Pet. The year comes to Tani, like a bardo gene, Balapta, I think Tani, Njipa Chimuchumare, Tani Tato Yachone. The year Gala Tani Conquer Droma, Sowata. Then Droma Sharzani, then Njipa Jechumala, Sansa, Tashi Pamba Malas, Nason Gongima, Tori Lamde Mala, Sansa, Dodi, Toma. Dadong Tuki Kyabje source, Droma Soa Tabdu, then Droma Shara Zing, then Damsuk about Njipatonki Sheswan.
As he attended upon the Master Rahula, eventually Rahula prophesied to Atisha that it would be of great benefit if he were to go and visit the great master and Pandita Serlingpa, who lived on the faraway island of Java in the Indonesian archipelago. That means he had to go on a lengthy sea voyage, and indeed Atisha was on board ship for 3 months, and during that very long sea voyage there were a great many difficulties and problems, and one day they encountered a great storm which struck great fear into all of the people aboard the ship. It was in that moment that Atisha spoke the famous prayer to Tara, who was his chosen deity, in which he says, "To her who protects from the 8 fears, I prostrate. To her who is blazing good fortune, I prostrate. To her who closes the door to the lower realms, I prostrate. To her who leads the way to the higher realms, I prostrate. Please protect all of us with your compassion. Please protect us throughout all of our lifetimes." And it is said that as he had spoken that prayer to Tara, the storm subsided and the great waves which were crashing about on the ocean were all pacified, and they could safely continue their journey. All of these hindrances having been eradicated, Atisha then safely arrived at the feet of Serlingpa. And among the various many teachings and instructions which he received from him, he also received the empowerments and transmissions for the practices of White Tara, which he then practiced very intensely. It is said that he attended upon Serlingpa for 12 years, again and again, renewed his bodhisattva resolve in front of his teacher, and studied and practiced the Dharma in an excellent way.
Then beg you to Dambo, Guruyoga, Tang, Karmapa, Sato, La Sobapen, Songi, Tamba Yang, Tapaki Perio. Yena Yang, then Pakaja, Nan Ropake, Topi, then Jabo Langtama, Sojite Pella, and Jawa Lame, that Tigo Koron, then Songi, Tamba Tangi, more Shignet, Nubnet, and Season. After these 12 years of having attended upon Serlingpa, Atisha then eventually returned to India, returned to the University of
Nalanda and resumed his activities there. In the meantime, or rather already centuries before, the Buddha Dharma had been established in the snowland of Tibet by the great Indian master Padmasambhava, otherwise also known as Guru Rinpoche, by Khenpo Bodhisattva, the Dharma King Trisandetsen, etc. And everything had started out rather nicely. However, a while after that, an evil king came along by name of Langdharma, who managed to almost completely destroy and eradicate whatever Dharma institutions, whatever Dharma establishments there were in Tibet. So after a rather dismal period of disorientation, etc., there were a few people in Tibet whose deepest wish it was to rekindle the flame of the Dharma within Tibet. And foremost among these were the, not quite kings, but one could call them stewards of the kings of Tibet. The one called La Lama Yeshe and his nephew, La Lama Changchebe. They conferred with many other great people and influential people, and it was finally decided that from among all the various great masters in India, the famous and most capable was Atisha, and that they were going to invite Atisha to come to Tibet to teach and re-establish the Dharma. In the meantime, not yet really in the know of all of these developments, Atisha in India had a vision of his chosen deity Tara, who prophesied to him that if he were to go to Tibet to rekindle and re-establish the Dharma there, that indeed great benefit for the sake of many beings would be brought about. Then eventually Atisha was formally invited to travel to Tibet. He accepted the invitation and set out on the long journey and eventually arrived there. Among the very first teachings that he composed while in Tibet is the famous text known as the Bodhipatta Pradipa, which is otherwise known as the path, as the torch upon the path that leads to enlightenment. He also composed a great many other instructions, short and concise Dharma instructions, many of which have been summarized in this very text, out of which Rinpoche chose one instruction, this whole summary which is known as the collection of the 100 short Dharmas of Atisha. And from among these, Rinpoche has chosen a particular instruction which he will teach here. Atisha, while being in Tibet, had a great many students, the foremost of whom was the famous Dromten, the teacher of the clan of Drom, known as Gyalwe. He spent many years in various areas of Tibet. He spent 3 years in the district of Ngari. He spent another 9 years in the region known as Nyetang, and he spent another 5 years in central Tibet in the provinces which are known as U and Tsang. And as he spent altogether these 17 years in Tibet, he taught the Dharma in a very extensive way. From among these great many different teachings that Atisha taught in Tibet, there is also, as we have variously said already, a collection which is known as the 100 Short Dharmas or the 100 Short Dharma instructions by Atisha. From among those, Rinpoche has chosen the 4th chapter, which is in Sanskrit known as the Samgraha Garvanama, in Tibetan that is Nyingpo Döpa, which means nothing else but the condensed essence or gathering the essence. And as the title of this short instruction suggests, it is a teaching in which the very essence, the very crux of the entire Buddhist teaching is summarized. Like so many texts, also this text starts out with a salutation, and Atisha here says that to the one endowed with great compassion, I pay homage, I bow, I prostrate. And the one endowed with great compassion is none other but the one who is known as Avalokiteshvara, the great compassionate one, who otherwise is also known as Chenrezig, the embodiment of the compassion of all Buddhas. So why do we first start out by way of paying homage to the great compassionate one, to Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig? We do so because he is the self-expression of the indivisible unity of loving-kindness and compassion, as well as the empty aspect, emptiness. Loving-kindness and compassion which manifests as Chenrezig, as Avalokiteshvara himself, and the empty aspect of which is none other but Mahamudra itself. This in itself is none other but our own natural state of mind. We ourselves are none other, or our mind nature is none other but this Mahamudra, which expresses itself as great compassion. Now the indivisible unity of Mahamudra, the empty aspect, as well as the clarity aspect that manifests itself as loving kindness and compassion, is none other but Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig. And therefore, in order to appreciate that fact, we pay homage, we prostrate, we bow before Avalokiteshvara, before starting out with anything other than that. Now the fact that our mind nature is none other but the indivisibility of the empty aspect, as well as the aspect of compassion, loving kindness towards beings, manifests itself in the moment when consciousness becomes aware of itself. That awareness of the true nature of mind expresses itself as great compassion, as loving kindness for the sake of beings. Because that is the case, since that is the case, therefore we start out by way of paying homage in this way. We start out by appreciating that fact as being such. So we have come to the point where the very introduction of the text has been explained, the appreciation that is being expressed by way of way of the homage to the great compassionate one. The next important point in the program, of course, is lunchtime. And as there is many people here, and it would hold up things a great deal if we were to extend the teaching here, which are other things to close here and continue in the afternoon. What remains to be done for the moment is to dedicate whatever merit has been accumulated here up till now for the sake of all beings.
Super Tabora, then is some of Shondrode, which are the central government, some Atisha. Cherry to Sama country, not Cherry to Samasala,
So, indeed, that is the point where we're at. Lunch will be served rather soon, and since it is a sunny day today, which is a rather unheard of occasion in these parts, we should all enjoy accordingly. Which says, sitting in the sun, the food will benefit us all the much better. It will be all the much tastier, and we should therefore all eat heartily. Just to make sure that we will do so, which says you'll also join us for lunch. Let us now dedicate the merit.